to hear that someone told you that I should come here this seminar session, so that's very nice to hear. So, like Rebecca told you, I'm going to talk about the joystick method that is developed by Pamela Settler and Eric Whitty to observe interpersonal behavior of teachers and students. First, I will explain a little bit about interpersonal theory, just to give you an idea of why this theory was, why this method was developed and how we use it in our research. Then I will explain, most of the time of my presentation, I will explain the joystick method and how it's configured and how the data look like and what training looks like. And then I will also give you a little bit of inside view in the data analysis that we did and that other people who are using the method are using. And if I have a little more time, I will also give you some of our results that we have already published or are working on now. So, interpersonal theory is a framework to describe interactions and relationships, behaviors between people, and is mostly used in psychology, personality psychology, and clinical psychology. And since 1985, it's also used in education by Theo Webbles, who adapted Leary's interpersonal model for educational settings to study how teachers and students, especially teachers, interact with their students and behave in classrooms. And this was especially used to find behaviors of teachers or behavior patterns that are related to classroom management problems. So, you all been in classrooms before as a student or maybe as a researcher. So we've all seen the teacher and the students. The teacher does something, he wants to explain something, uses gestures like I'm doing now, walks around, and we can observe this. Students observe this, we can also observe this as a researcher or an outsider. And you will develop a perception about this teacher that's standing in front of the class. And every individual has their own perceptions, but together these perceptions will convey an interpersonal style. So when they are aggregated, you get an idea of what the style of the person is. So this interpersonal style, behavior starts somewhere. So usually it's closely related to your personality and how you move around and talk to people. Your behavior and interactions that will tell other people what you do, and they will get perceptions, just like I told you. But this is a circular process. So when you're interacting with someone, it's not only your own interpersonal style that is related to how the interactions go, but also the interpersonal style and your own perceptions of the other person you're interacting with will adjust how you behave, react to someone. So it's a sort of circular process that's happening in classrooms as well. So interpersonal theory is used to describe these behaviors and these interpersonal styles, and you can see some words popping up already. These are all behaviors, and these can be ordered along the circumference of a circle. You can see, for example, leading in the upper right corner. You will see uncertain in the lower left corner, and opposing behaviors are in opposing sections of the circular model. And underlying these behaviors are two dimensions, agency and communion. Agency is the level of control someone shows. Some people say it's dominance versus submission, and communion is the level of friendliness someone shows in their behavior. And that's hostility versus friendliness. This model can be captured in 8 octants. These names that are given here are the octants that we use, the octant names that we use in our educational model. We call this the teacher interpersonal circle. So how do we measure student perceptions and interpersonal styles? We give students a questionnaire. It started out as a 77-item questionnaire, and now we've reduced it in the last 30 years to a 24-item questionnaire. So it takes less time for students to answer this. And it's even better, reliable, and valid than the 77 version. So that's even better. We're currently also working on an English version. There is an English version, but it's still a long version, and we want to have a shorter version and also one that can be used in all English-speaking countries. That's not the case at the moment. So, very shortly, the interpersonal styles. I told you about the 8 octants. All these octants can also be seen as a type of interpersonal style. I've just shown 4 here. Teachers who are in the upper right corner are more like the scouting, the Boy Scouts, leaders. Teachers in the lower left part of the circle are, well, they're not very good teachers. So there's a lot of chaos and a lot of disorder in the classrooms. So all these types that we have have been found to be desirable or less desirable for education. So the 3 octants that are green there are more the desirable interpersonal styles. These are not desirable, so these are bad for student achievement, for teacher well-being, and these 2 are in between. They're not bad and also not really good. And lately we have found a 9th style, which is in the middle. So teachers don't really show agency and don't really show communion, not in a hostile, not in a friendly way, not in a submissive or dominant way. And these teachers are very unpredictable for students. So we've also have this 9th style. So I'll come back to this later. So that's why I explained all of this. So we've done a lot of research on these interpersonal styles, and we know that some styles are good for achievement, for well-being of teachers, for well-being of students, motivation of students, but we did not really know how these styles or how these perceptions of students emerge and develop through interactions during the lesson. So that's what we wanted to study, and we needed a method to do this. I go back one moment. There's also one communication process that we thought was really interested in studying. That's interpersonal complementarity. It's it's a little bit like the synchronization I was talking about. It's when a teacher is showing agentic behavior, you expect that a student will be submissive. And this happens in normal communication, also with non-hierarchical relationships. This happens as well. Now I'm talking and you guys are listening, so I'm a little bit more agentic and you are submissive to my talk. So I hope that you perceive me as friendly at the moment, because I perceive you as friendly as well. So that's another part of complementarity. When you show friendly behavior, it's usually the case that other people will act friendly towards you as well. And the same goes for dominance. If I would have been shouting and, well, not been very nice, then you would probably go away and just be very rude to me as well, just like I was rude to you. So that's what's happening in this process. So that's what we try to capture, and that's also what Pamela Sattler and Eric Woody were trying to capture. So therefore they wanted to be able to code interpersonal behavior in real time as a stream of behavior as it's unfolding, and they wanted to do that as a blend of agency and communion, just like in the model, and how behavior works in real life. So it's not, everybody shows both types of behavior. So they tried a new approach, and that was the joystick method. I brought one with me. So, well, you can see maybe on the screen as well, but the joystick has a few buttons. These are all used in the analyses. This is the Sidewinder Microsoft joystick. This is not the one they used, because they used a joystick with force feedback, so that will, when you move the joystick, when you go to the outer ends of the joystick, it will give you some force. So it will be more difficult to code it, because they thought when we code agency, it doesn't happen very often that the person is very, very, very agentic. So we won't want people to easily code that behavior. I myself did not use joysticks with force feedback, also because they were difficult to find, but also because I might explain that Pam is doing research more in the psychopathology settings, and they're very behavior with a big intensity, that's maybe how I should call it, is more common, but when you want to observe behavior in normal settings, like educational settings or normal interactions between people, it just depends on how you view the behavior. Well, I hope I can explain it better when I show you the rest. So there's a program included. It's called joymon.exe, and when you plug your joystick into your computer, you can open the program and you will see this. So this screen is not in a circle, even though the model is circular, but they thought it wouldn't be a problem, and I think it is not a problem as well, because when you are familiar with the theory, you will see that you will not code in corners. So we found that it's not really a big problem. So you would like to start coding right away, but that's not possible. You have to configure where the data should be stored, and you can also change a lot of settings that are by default in this program. And that I think it's nice because the program evolved during the last couple of years. I started using this program in 2012, but since then there have been a lot of additions to the settings that can be changed, and I will go over them as well. So the path where you will store your data, you should put it in there, because otherwise it won't run and won't run your data. It's very easy to see that you didn't do it right, because when you didn't put the correct path in it, it will immediately say, don't know where to store the data, error. So something we usually don't want to see, but it's a really easy problem to fix. So there are a lot of other settings, like you can, in the data file, you will see a banner. I will show it to you later. In a banner that will give you some information about what the file name was, so that you can always find it back. That it writes a banner, so if you don't want that, you can also remove it. And you can also see there's some comments like time, x-axis, y-axis, report status, and some other information that will be given in this banner. So one thing that is probably very important for you when you want to start coding this is how many times per second you want the program to write the location of the joystick. So by default it says twice per second. So every half second there's a coding. You don't have to push anything, it goes out automatically with the program. But you can change this. You can say that you want it 5 times a second. You can also say you want it a half time per second, so then it will just go 1 second, or even smaller sample sizes. You can also change the magnitude of the joystick. So you saw the screen with the 2 dimensions on it. It says now X and Y magnitude is 1000. That's also by default. You can change that. I tried it before. So 1000 means that it's going from -1000 to +1000 on both dimensions. I always leave it at this magnitude, because I found that when I change it, the joystick starts to get a little bit bumpy, and it's nice for coding. So this is just to maximize the sensibility of the joystick codings. So you can also change the pointer radius. So I'll show you this in this slide. So this is the default size of the dot in the middle. So maybe if you cannot see it, well, it's there. You can change it to be bigger. I don't know why. Because it's better to have a small one. Also because you have the large magnitude. Maybe if you change the magnitude, that would be a good suggestion to change also the pointer radius. So this is a setting that I haven't used before, and I actually don't know if it was in there when I started with this coding. I don't think so, because it was really new to me when I was looking at this newer version of Joymon. It says output only changes to file. If you take this setting, then it will only code when you change the joystick. So for me, I wanted to code every behavior, every change, every small change in the movement of the joystick, but it might be interesting for some people or some research questions to only want to code when the joystick is moved. And then you can have the larger time intervals. Well, the consequences of the time intervals are not similar anymore, and they are now when you don't take this one. So the next setting is you can change the labels. So I use the default labels as well. I've tried other labels, but they were distracting me, and I was like, okay, I should use this. But like Anna was just saying, her study, they use this as well, but they use the arousal and valence measures. So I could think that you could change the labels for the axis to something that corresponds to those dimensions. There's the 4 blank spots that are there. They're also new. You can also give names to the corners if you want to. Okay. So you can change also the size of the screen, of the joystick monitoring screen, which could be handy when you code a lot of videos, and then you don't have to change the setting all the time. You can just tick this, and then every time you open it again, it will give you the same window screen. Another new feature is that it can draw the octants. So before it only drew the 2 dimensions, but now, like these, now you can also change it to this setting. So if you are really interested in coding octants, or in coding more, let's see, more categories, or for different applications, this could be really interesting to change in the settings. There was once someone who told Pamela that they wanted to code, that they found it difficult to code both dimensions at the same time, and they would have liked it to be possible to suppress one of the axis, one of the dimensions, and then let the coders do everything twice, because you have to code the agency and the communion dimension separately from each other. They put in this feature, and well, it looks like this. So here's the communion dimension is suppressed, and there the agency dimension is suppressed. But I think most of the people don't use this. I tried this, but it's really difficult because you see, if you want to observe only agency, you also see communion, and you can sort of not see them separately from each other. So coding them separately is very difficult. But it could be very useful for other applications, like if you want to code on and off task student behavior, for example, or some other variables. Okay, so if in a very unfortunate case something happens during your coding, you could, like sneezing, for example, you're coding a 30-minute video and you have to sneeze. Then you will like, what? This will happen. So you could, if you wanted to, press a button, and you have to specify this button. Well, it's specified by default, so that you can go back to your data and see what happened there. I recommend just, very unfortunately, doing your coding again, because it's really strange to, it feels really strange to change your data a little because you sneezed at that point, but it's possible. It's also possible to use this button to code some interesting things that happens during the lesson. Maybe there's an argument that happens or something, and you think, oh, I want to code this because I want to look back at this point in the video again. This is where something really interesting for my study happened. So it's also possible to use it for that. But I guess it was included for unfortunate events, like someone knocking on the door and you get distracted, sneezing, something like that. The button is here in the back. It's the fire button on your joystick. It's also possible to show the joystick coordinates in the screen. I didn't put a screen shot of it in the slides, but it's. I think it's distracting, but some people think it's nice. So you can just however you want to code, you can change out of those things. And then oh, that's with this button too, but I didn't put in how it looks like in the screen. And then one of the most important buttons, I think, oh, I didn't put red thing around it, is how to start the coding. So there's one button, there it is. The 7 button, it's this one on the joystick, so you have the joystick and it's in the left, in your left corner. And it should be pressed once to start coding and twice to stop coding. Okay, and then you save your data, and you go back to the screen. It says also here in the bottom that you can press button 7 to start coding. Okay, so when you start coding, your the pointer will turn red, and I will show you a short video of what it looks like, how it works. So this is not a real observation. This was just made to illustrate how the joystick coding It doesn't really work now. Maybe it's because something was changed in the volume, but computer editing, I think. Well, you can just see, you put on the video, you push the button, and then you move the joystick to code the behavior. You should code teachers and students separately. So first you would watch the video and code teacher behavior, and then you would put on another video or the same. We have 2 videos. We have one in the front and one in the back of the classroom, so we can really see the students from the front, and then you code the students. Okay, this is data files that are generated by Jormon. It never rewrites data, so if you do it again, or if you make a mistake and have to do it again, it will just make a new file. And this is what the data file looks like. It's time series data. So here's the banner that I was talking about. It gives you all sorts of information about your settings. It also gives information about what the columns are. So the first one is time. So every half second. You can see that in this case the timestamps are a little bit off, but that's not a problem. It could have been a problem. It was a problem before when we coded with Windows 7 computers. It's not a problem anymore, but it just looks a little bit strange, but it's just every half second. The x-axis, the y-axis, and this is the report status firing column. So if you used the report status, then there will be a 1 in this column. So you can do a joystick training if you want to. If you want to code interpersonal behavior, then Pamela Settler can provide a training. You can go to her, or she can come to you if you have a lot of people that need training. But if you do another type of research, then you can also try to find your own way of using the joystick. And trainers should practice, because it's really difficult. It's difficult at first. So the first 1 or 2 days, it's really you really have to get used to operating the joystick, and but finally, at least in our study and in some other studies that have used the joystick, reliability between coders was really good. So that's really nice. But you should still check codings regularly. So if you use other coders, check that, because there can be some problems. And this is hypothetical, but I will show you what problems there can occur. So this green line that I highlighted there, this coder did hardly move the joystick. So that coder either didn't see anything or just was afraid to move the joystick. So that's something that you should be aware of, that can happen, and you should check that very early on in the coding process. Now we have this observer that coded a lot of movement, and it's not really making sense that you would go up and down in just a matter of seconds, from all the way to very dominant or very submissive. So that should be really strange. It can of course happen, but it won't be that much. Okay, so I will show you very shortly some types of analyses that we did. I have only 2 minutes time left, so I will go through that very, very quickly. So you can visually inspect these data multiple ways. You can do this like with SPSS syntax, or you could just use a 3D, very nice visualization of that Pamela made. I'll go through this really quick. So let's see, it starts. So first you saw the data like they were coded, and then now these are the data for dominance. I'll turn further, and now you will see the data for communion. First they were for agency, now they're for communion. Okay, so really quick. I will not go into this now, because that will leave no room for other analyses. So what they did was use spectral analyses to study cycles in interactions. So you can get information about coherence, type of entrainment between people, also about phase, and this also is a little bit similar to what Anu told about the synchrony, so who's leading, who's lagging in interactions. That's all information that you can get from these type of analysis, type of data. Another type of data that we use, that I use myself, is state-space grid analysis, and it will provide you with a visualization of the interaction trajectory and how behavior of people, in this case teachers and students, moves through the interpersonal circle. It might be a little bit strange, but the octants of the circle are collapsed across the dimensions, so it's a nice way of looking at interactions. So you can get all kinds of information from this. You can get information about structure, the variability of interaction, the predictableness, also about content, what type of behavior did those people show. And these are some of our data that we presented, that we published already. This is just teacher behavior. So here we did not include students. We only included teacher agency and teacher communion. These are all teachers with different types of interpersonal styles, so you can see that also the interactions are very different. And this is one example of two teachers, one with a dredging type, that's the one in the middle that I showed you before, and the authoritative type is is a teacher with in the upper right corner, so a good teacher. And you can see that the dredging teacher shows a lot more changes in behavior. It's really unpredictable for students, and that's one of the things that's really difficult for students to grasp, and that's why all the disorder in the classroom happens. So some other analysis that are being done and are upcoming is time-varying effect models, Granger causality, vector autoregression models, and smoke and density plots. Those are the ones that are shown there. These are retrieved from Kate Thomas, who's also working with the joystick in clinical settings. So these are very promising types of analysis that we can do with all this data. So I have this example, but I don't have time, so I will go through this very fastly to my last slide. Let's see, is it this? Oh yeah, this is how could we use it for interpersonal purposes. We also did one study where we looked at student behavioral engagement, so we only looked at students. Also the study where we only looked at teacher behavior, we can relate that to other interpersonal variables. I think you could also use it to code emotions, anger versus happiness, or maybe the arousal versus valence level. So I think there are a lot of options to use this method with, even though it's created for interpersonal processes. So, thank you.